video is broadcast on LSL Podcast Channel. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel.
There are some people I'm not happy with there. You have to listen very carefully to what the president says. My exclusive interview with him yesterday, right before he left for his Asia trip, he's leaving today. He's going to stop in Hawaii on his way to Korea. He'll be in Vietnam and, of course, to China and Japan. This is a 10-day trip, and the president is known to not like travel. He does not like long trips. He likes to sleep in his own bed, and he likes to be home. He's kind of a homebody. Well, and he happens to have a few homes, but he likes to be in one of his homes. He does. He's not a traveler.
Are the Obamas welcoming him to their beachfront manse during his stay? I wonder, in Hawaii?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Maybe Oprah will open up her cottage to
Super Soul Sunday!
Super Soul Sunday! Oh, my gosh. Happy Friday. We talked about a lot in this interview yesterday, but before we get into the substance, I think it's important for all of you to be taken behind the scenes at the White House, where Hope Hicks was great in setting this whole thing up, and I think what they're doing now with tax reform is what they didn't quite get right on the health care reform and the health care issue when they wanted to repeal Obamacare. They really are working on a coordinated strategy with Congress, which is good. It's really good that they're doing this. And so they had a kind of a media day of a lot of administration officials, different cabinet members, a labor secretary. We ran into Rick Perry. I'll be interviewing Bob Lighthizer, this trade representative. Of course, Kellyanne was there. Mick Mulvaney was there, of course, head of Office of Management and Budget, with the budget priorities, and the president was made available on television exclusively to us. But when we walked in, it was quite, in the East Room of the White House, it was quite interesting because...
Interesting?
Well, it was
disconcerting.
It was a bit loud. Let's just put it this way. It was a loud endeavor. Raymond, set the scene for
Well, when we went into the White House, I assumed they would have a private room, the red room, the blue room, the green room. Yeah, like every time you interview the president. Well, they had like a little, it was almost like Sinatra at Madison Square Garden. There was a little stage in the middle of the room, and all around it were radio hosts from across the fruited plain. There was Rick and Bubba. There was Lars Larson, who I'll return to later. There was Larry O'Connor, who does a great show in Washington, D.C.
Howie Carr.
Howie Carr in Boston, wonderful Howie Carr.
Oh, no, I love Howie.
Well, I walked in.
It was a bit of a
I accompanied Laura. I said, I want to see the president. I'll go with Laura. So I go in, and the White House people are there. And they said, so what do you think? I said, this isn't going to work. You're going to have to set this up somewhere else. I wouldn't want to interview the president in front of everybody like that.
Why, Raymond? And the room is alive with the sound
alive. It was
radio
like
chatter.
This was like the outer, the waiting room at the Tower of Babel. Everybody's yelling and doing their own thing. It was a cacophony. So when I walked in, I said, this isn't going to work. I said, not that Laura's going to be thrown by it. Lie of the day, but that the president is going to be thrown by it. I said, he's not going to want to shout over a bunch of voices
talking about
around
complicated issues of economic and foreign policy, North Korea as well. And then, so the president walks into the room
and greets Laura.
Greets Laura.
They sit down, and there's a din around them. But as the interview starts,
after one question, he answered one question on tax reform.
A radio host over Laura's shoulder. Should we mention who it is?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's
Lars Larson is behind Laura, and he goes, "Welcome back to the show." And the president goes, "Who in the hell is that? Who is that? Who is that?
We can't do
Wait. Somebody's yelling. Who's yelling? Who is that?" And he starts pointing, and he identifies said radio host. Is that who I think that is? Hope. Tell him to be quiet.
Be quiet.
Tell him to be quiet. I can't hear. How can I?
But that is exactly what my response would be. It was a classic. It was exactly what I said when I walked in. I said, this is not going to work. He's not going to like this.
Who is that shouting?
Who is shouting?
They're shouting.
No.
Big voice. Good voice.
Good voice.
But shouting.
Loud.
Very loud.
Suddenly, I don't know what they did with poor Lars Larson. They just go to a best of show or what? How did they deal with that?
I don't know. Oh yeah, then they got real quiet.
It was church mouse after that.
Then I have to step right in and up the presidential.
No, Raymond had to egg the president on. Then Raymond steps up on stage. It really shouldn't be happening.
They shouldn't be talking over the president.
Really.
You are right. They should not be talking over the president.
Raymond, you kicked the hornet's nest and made the situation even more.
I didn't. I solved the problem.
But
Lars got very quiet for a little while.
Then it was good. Welcome to the Lars Larson Show. We're here at the East Room of the White House.
They were all weird, whispering because the president.
I did this thing. He was suddenly a golf commentator.
They were all golf commentators.
At the third hole, the president. But at that point, I thought it was important to ask a question about what I understand through my own reporting and sources as to be an undermining of the president's agenda at the State Department. Let's listen. We were talking about Rex Tillerson.
You want your vision pushed.
I want my vision, but my vision is my vision anyway. It's called cost saving. There's nothing wrong with cost saving. Rex is in there working hard. He's doing his best. He's doing the best he can.
Is he going to be with you for the duration?
Well, we'll see. I don't know who's going to be. Duration, I think the duration. I don't think any president in 9 months has done the job that we've done.
Well, I think in the end, when you look at these numbers today, and the president talked extensively about the state of the economy, when you look at the numbers today, 260,000 jobs added to the U.S. economy. I did not predict that the economy would be doing as well as it's doing right now at this point. I thought it would start doing well after Trump was elected, but I have to say, it's wild. Economists expect a sharp rebound in job growth in October. Let's say, 310,000 jobs after a 33,000 decline in September. But the hurricane impact was actually short-lived, and hiring in the scene is picking up even after the storms. So our forecast is for 325,000. It's going to be a big number. Now, this was from 14 hours ago, guys. The number actually was confusing. The number was actually 260,000 jobs created, which is still huge.
It's enormous.
Enormous. I asked the president whether or not he felt like he wasn't getting adequate credit for the economy, given the state of the media, of course, the obsession with the Russian narrative, Bob Mueller, the effort by the left to focus on all these side issues and investigations, and this is what he said.
Look at the economy.
Take a look.
Are you getting the credit for this economic revival without your tax cut yet through, without Obamacare repeal yet? And this is a stunning economic revival in 10 months.
One of the greatest in the history of our country. And I'm in here now 10 months, and we are setting record after record, day after day. I think we hit another one today. No, I'm not getting enough credit for it because a lot of the reason is enthusiasm level, business level, and also the fact that I've cut regulations to the extent that I've cut them. I mean, I could tell you jobs that were never going to get built are now being built.
Well, and they just announced yesterday, which again, in the MSNBC CNN obsession with Bob Mueller, they simply do not like to report the fact that Broadcom, that major Singapore corporation, bringing a manufacturing to the United States. It's another great sign of the new confidence in the U.S. Government's approach to business. There had been a hostile relationship that had developed between the government and business in the United States, government and manufacturing, government and corporations, and ultimately a lot of CEOs decided we'll ship our companies overseas. We'll have lower taxes. We won't have all these environmental regulations. We won't have to deal with the same legal framework with all the plaintiffs' attorneys. We're out of here. And also we'll be able to pay cheap wages overseas. So there were some nefarious reasons for doing that, but also truly was a hostile manufacturing environment in the United States, and that is beginning to turn around in a big way. We're going to talk to Michael Pillsbury coming up in just a few moments on the Laura Ingraham Show. He's an expert in all things China, which I also pressed the president about. We'll get to that in just a moment. Brian Kilmeade's going to stop by, another bestseller on his hands, and a really interesting story about Andrew Jackson and the Battle of New Orleans, which Raymond knows well about, being a son of New Orleans. But I find it interesting, Raymond, that in this time of American history under attack, it's almost like a boomerang effect among the reading public, that more people will reject what the left is trying to do to tear history down, and it's almost like people want to learn more while they still can.
Right.
They're gobbling up these books, a lot of them written very accessibly. They're not overly academic, but they're a narrative of U.S. history and really interesting stories and incredibly brave and erudite people.
Well, they are stories of people in hardship against incredible odds who succeed, and that's the Andrew Jackson tale. The Battle of New Orleans is an incredible story.
Well, I think it's about time that the people start taking their history into their own hands.
And a miraculous one where faith intervenes in a powerful way, but I'll let Brian tell that.
A very sordid narrative continues to develop and emanate from Hollywood. We touched on this a little last night on the Ingraham angle, but boy, this Kevin Spacey stuff, the House of Cards collapsing, gets worse and worse. And all these young men...
another man came forward, said he was abused at 14 by Kevin Spacey, had a sexual relationship with him. CAA, his agency, his publicist, they've all walked away. My guess is his acting career is over. But let me say this. If this becomes the benchmark for whether or not you can have a career in Hollywood, everybody should start heading to Hollywood because there's going to be a lot of casting calls. That's all I can say.
The news story in the LA Times is about this Agency for Performing Arts, or APA, which is a Beverly Hills-based, I guess, talent agency, and a horrific tale of abuse there as well. All young, very good-looking male actors or aspiring actors or producers. And
they're 14-year-olds. They are children. They're still children.
In a written statement, an APA spokesperson said the company takes these allegations very seriously, and our hearts go out to anyone who may be affected. Yeah, it destroyed their lives. Yeah, it destroyed lives.
Laura, I was in the theater. It happens in the workplace. It happens to women all the time. In the theater and in the film industry, it happens to both young men and young women. It does.
We're going to take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show. 855-40-LAURA. We're going to talk China. And will this administration actually go for enforcement on these key trade provisions where we're seeing China dump cheap products into the United States below market cost, which put American companies into bankruptcy? We saw it with the solar industry. We saw it in a big way in the steel industry. So Pillsbury will talk about that. The North Korea threat is real. And will we look to China to save us there? And does that mean China gets a free pass on its trade violations? Can you de-link those two? It's a really important topic. I'm going to talk about that. And fat shaming. Finnair is now being accused of fat shaming. How many of you ever traveled on Finnair? Probably not many of you.
Finnair, F-I-N-Air.
F-I-N-N, air.
Oh, I thought you were saying thin air. I'm like, well, of course you're fat shamed on thin air. I'm like, why would it be called thin air? Thought it was a new gimmick airline. Okay.
That was an interesting.
So
that's an interesting Finnair.
A whole new.
So
Finnair.
The Finns are deciding that they're not going to do just weighing the luggage. They're going to take a different approach to overly weighted passengers.
So wait. They're weighing the passengers?
Apparently, you might pay a premium if you are up at 2 or 3 bills. Like if you're up at 3 bills and you're fitting into one of those econ seats, talk about border encroachment. You're crossing the border every minute of the flight. And so how many of you have had this? And God bless, it is hard to be struggling with your weight. It is not easy. It's a very difficult.
Well, and the seats are getting smaller.
Yeah, the seats are getting smaller. And people are getting larger.
Italian derriere can barely fit in this seat after a pasta dinner. They're tiny. They've gone from like 16 inches to 12. You can barely get in.
No.
So if you're a big man or woman, and there are people who are bigger, they're just big bones.
boned.
Big hips, big arms.
I sometimes I sometimes get numb in the posterior flying. I get numb because it's so small, and you're your body. You have to contort to get away from the overspread of the other, and you're up against the wall. Also, I always like to assume my border on the armrest really quickly. I like to get my elbows
seize the border
out.
quickly.
I seize control of the border. I don't like people encroaching on my border. We'll take a break. 855-40. This is a Friday free-for-all. You can call in about anything. We'll talk about the airlines fat-shaming people and whether that's appropriate. Or we'll talk about the president's trip to Asia and the obsession with Bob Mueller and anyone who ever went to the Russian tea room in New York. We'll take a break.
With a big credit bureau data breach making the news recently, it's only natural to be worried that you're one of the 145 million people whose identity may have been compromised. And while many suggest freezing your credit, it might not be enough. Identity theft goes beyond credit fraud. Freezing your credit may not stop thieves from stealing from your 401k or prevent your personal information from being sold on the dark web. LifeLock can help, though. LifeLock will monitor your personal information, alert you to suspicious activity, and if you have a problem with ID theft, one of their U.S.-based identity restoration specialists will work to fix it. Of course, no one can prevent all ID theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses. But with LifeLock, you'll have identity theft protection that's trusted by millions. Call 1-800-LifeLock or go to LifeLock.com now, and you can save 10% off by using the promo code Laura. Don't wait. That's 1-800-LifeLock or LifeLock.com. Use the promo code Laura.
President, as he was boarding Air Force One, the first stop, Hawaii. He's going to visit Pearl Harbor and the troops there, and it's a 10-day trip, and it's not the kind of thing he normally enjoys doing. But I have to say, to be a fair-minded analyst of his presidency so far, he has performed really well on these foreign trips. The first trip to the Middle East, then to visit the Pope, to Israel. He's calling out our European allies on paying their UN dues, and now this. This is good stuff, and we'll see what comes of this. Up next, the China question looms large over this trip. We'll talk about it. Don't go. I got some comment yesterday on Twitter that were actually, unusually nice. Twitter can be a mean girl's place. But there's some nice comments about, well, Laura, you're tired, but you look pretty good. I'm like, okay, fine. See me without the plaster on my face. No, but Raymond and I were joking that Genucel is probably, giving me a little bit fresh look around the eyes. I'm not kidding you. People are like, how do you not have bags under your eyes? Because I use Genucel in the morning, and then I use Genucel when I go to sleep, under the eyes. And you can even dab it around kind of your lip area. But it's awesome. You will love it. I've used it now for almost a couple of years. They have a 10-day Genucel warehouse clearance event now. It's the last week. You double your Genucel. Order for nothing, absolutely free. It has those natural plant stem cells and advanced peptides, and it works right on your annoying bags and puffiness under the eyes, and it works really fast. You'll love it. It has a 60-day, 100% money-back guarantee. And you call now, you get a 2-month supply of that deep firming serum as well. And you really hop to it, call in the next 20 minutes, and you get the Esotique RF. It's another popular wrinkle treatment, totally free. That's 4 free gifts. All you need to do for the Genucel and all these free gifts is call 800-480-5206. That's 800-480-5206, or go to Genucel.com. Remember, this is for a limited time. Order now, and you also get a surprise luxury gift free. 800-480-5206. You're listening to The Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. That concerned me, and it concerned me for this reason. Our trade policy is critical for protecting U.S. economic interests, especially in light of what China has done to steal our intellectual property, going all the way back to 1996 when I first started talking about this issue, 1998 when I worked for another cable network, stealing our supercomputing technology. Back then they were trying to get get campaign contributions to Bill Clinton. Remember Wen Ho Lee and all Charlie Tree. Charlie Tree. It was Charlie Tree. Gosh, I don't even know how I remember those two names. Charlie Tree. And we have to take a serious approach to China. And the president, however, is right, because the one country who can perhaps help us avoid a military conflict with North Korea is China. But so far, from what I've seen, China doesn't seem at all willing to do much of anything to step in and take the reins away from that fat Cabbage Patch Kid. So I don't know. I get it, but I'm not sure that China has done as much as the president claims China's done. But we'll see. Is Mike Pillsbury with us? Okay, so he's going to join us in just a moment on the Laura Ingraham Show. More horrific news from the world of high-flying finance. And this is a portfolio manager who worked for George Soros, who's now been accused of raping and beating women in his penthouse dungeon.
Oh, my gosh, this is scary.
This is getting worse and worse. His Manhattan penthouse dungeon. Howie Rubin, 62, whose high-stakes dealing was featured in best-selling books like Liar's Poker and The Big Short, rented the lavish Metropolitan Tower pad in Midtown to indulge in brutal sex with women, whom he paid between $2,000 and $5,000 per session. What a freak. The three unidentified plaintiffs in the case, including two Playboy playmates, claim the married father raped and beat them to the point they needed extensive medical. This is the cultural depravity meeting human frailty, vulnerability to sin, and so forth. I mean, this is not having a extramarital relationship. This is a depraved, demonic state that we found ourselves in after 50 plus years of the celebration of pornography. See, I would argue that this is Hugh Hefner's real legacy.
Right, it is his real legacy because it gave cultural license. Because if people see something on a screen, it seems normalized. You see it on your phone, you see it on TV, you see it on the computer. It's normalized behavior. And Hollywood bears a big piece of this blame. Ditto for the violence, the explosion of violence we're seeing.
What was one of the biggest books that women were devouring?
And not only women. On a subway in New York, I saw a woman and her 14-year-old daughter, because I asked the age of the girl as they left the subway, reading 50 Shades of Grey and 50 Shades Darker together on a subway. And I thought, this is akin to child abuse. To open a girl's mind to this kind of objectification and to confuse it or conflate it with romance or love. It isn't love. It's abuse. It's abuse. So we now rend our garments and get all upset because, we hear about this guy in the dungeon, or we hear about Kevin Spacey. But we have a literary and a film culture that has embraced this, advertised it, and promoted it to our young. They're just doing as they were told. And that's always been my beef with, look, adults can do what they want. Adults can see what they want. But you're planting images and you're normalizing aberrant behavior that is deeply destructive and on a cultural level, toxic. Well, destroys relationships and people.
We might switch gears on this. I mean, we'll keep talking China, but this hits right here at home.
Yep.
And we've done, and I think we should actually have an extended conversation about this on radio. We've talked to women and men across this country who have shared their stories of porn addiction, degradation of human relationships, and women who've told just the most, it's
unspeakable
heartbreaking
tales. No, it's
heartbreaking stories of what's happened to their husbands and sons who began seeing pornographic images at an early age.
It rewires
and who were
the mind.
unable to have a normal physical relationship afterward with women. Because their mind has become so conditioned to seeing these extreme and depraved acts.
They only find excitement and stimulation in depraved illness, sickness,
and what is it?
And
what does it remind you of? You start with pot, you go to OxyContin or cocaine, OxyContin, and then the doctor cuts off the prescription. You go to fentanyl, and you're dead.
Right.
And they're dead inside. They become dead inside because of pornography. And so when everyone's celebrating Hugh Hefner's life and death and his great legacy and Playboy,
sexual freedom,
and it's all
don't
just
moralize at me.
Yeah, don't wag your finger at me. And then all these years later, the curtain has been pulled back on this sick and continuing striptease of just complete and utter human degradation in Hollywood, and of course beyond Hollywood, because Hollywood just reflects our values. Ultimately, I mean, especially on the coast and so forth. But the porn problem is a problem that affects everybody.
It does reflect our values, but in many ways it also reshapes our values, and that's
better stated.
And that's the challenge. How do you reflect what's happening without? Remember Kevin Spacey? People forget this. Remember that movie many, many years ago where he seduces a young girl. She was underage. He was a father. American
Beauty. Won the Oscar.
Right.
Best Picture.
And I thought back to that as I watched these revelations come out, how believable that was and compelling that movie was, and yet it was driven by something real. And that's often the case. And that's why we have to be really careful. I can remember, I think I might have said one in college at the time, but I remember writing a piece about that particular movie.
I talked about it at the time.
Yeah, because it was so degrading and so dismissive of suburbia and the border and the barriers it puts up to us. By the way, the Suburbicon movie that Clooney and Matt Damon just created, also a bomb, by the way, but there, suburbia in the 50s was just a place of racism and racial hatred. It's such a dark, bitter view of America because it reflects the dark soul of the people making it. That's the problem here. They can't see clearly, so they project all of this crap on the country.
And, there are pieces just a few weeks ago in the Washington Post, when to talk to kids about internet porn sooner than parents think. Can you imagine? Can you?
Laura, they're being inundated by it. It's at the airport. It's at the mall. You go to a movie theater. We went to see a family movie, and the preview for the movie was some horrible Charlize Theron film where she dropped the F-bomb and kissed another woman. It was before a family film. This was the preview.
That should. Oh my God! I'd complain to the theater.
Oh, I was enraged.
Oh, no.
But
how about on planes? By the way, how about on airplanes?
Oh no!
When people have their computers open and they've downloaded films, and then my boys walk back to the bathroom and they walk back and they see these screens.
Right. And violent acts.
You know what I say?
Sex acts.
Yeah. You know what I say? I say, have some human decency. I said this to this man. I said, have some self-respect. Oh no, it's air rage.
Laura, we actually have reaction from a 16-year-old boy talking about how watching pornography actually influenced his view of women.
Pornography shaped my want for sex and what I wanted to do whenever I started having sex, big time. It wasn't just like, I want to have a relationship with this girl and have sex with her. It was like, I just want to have sex with as many as I can.
It's just...
It rewires the brain. Completely remakes the person.
It destroys the human spirit and the understanding of real intimacy. That's what it does.
Right.
So now parents who give their kids these iPads at an earlier and earlier. We've all seen it at restaurants.
Oh my gosh.
The iPad family. They're not even talking to them. The husband and wife probably don't even like each other. They're sitting there at the table like, oh my God, when will this dinner end? Then the kids are around the table, 4, 5, 6, headphones on. They're not even listening to the parents.
Big pads playing,
No.
Fruit
iPad,
Ninja.
No. And by the way, and they're sitting around the table, and then afterward, turns out the parents have to rush to check browser history. Kids are on the free Wi-Fi. They don't know what's coming up on that screen. So now, I can't believe we have to do this so soon. Check browser history for kids. Yes, because guess what? It's all around us. And once you give that pipeline from the internet into your kid's brain, just watch out. I'm telling you, I keep thinking about this. My 6-year-old and 8-year-old daughter had been interested only in playing games and watching kid shows on the ancient tablet we bought 5 years ago. I routinely left my own computer running on my desk, never dreamed they would use it, much less for nefarious purposes. Suddenly, we were thrust into the reality that our kids were savvy enough to find things on the computer that we were not ready for them to see. We know something was up when my son called down from my office. Mommy, how do you spell naked? I immediately went to investigate. As I took to the stairs 2 at a time, I had the naive thought that my boys were writing notes to the girls about a clubhouse or making a map to a secret Pokemon treasure. But as soon as I saw my daughter sitting at my desk and the other kids huddled around her, I knew they weren't playing post office. I shooed them away. I growled at my kids. We certainly don't search the word naked. I didn't even know my kids knew how to use a search engine. They were subdued as they got ready for bed, no doubt worried about the looming punishment. And it turns out that, their kids were on, the bad news is that they searched the word butt. He swiveled the screen so I could see the search results. I fought the urge to squeeze my eyes. I saw dozens of images of a well-known celebrity's amply chronicled backside. 855-40-LAURA. How big a problem do you think this is? And the fallout that we're seeing in offices and major corporations, and the fare that pollutes us on big screens, on billboards and music lyrics, and what it's done already to our national psyche, our relationships. In your own experience with pornography. We'll get into this in a much more profound way here on the Laura Ingraham Show. 855-40-LAURA, as Barack Obama jokes about President Trump having a healthy ego. All right, let's go to Lisa in Texas here on the Laura Ingraham Show. The porn explosion in the United States and the fallout all across society. You're seeing George Soros's top money man, portfolio manager, now accused of these hideous, depraved acts, pedophilia in Hollywood. The list goes on and on. Lisa, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a 20-year-old daughter. She's a college student, an engineering major, and we were on the phone the other night talking about fashions. And she sent me an image that she swiped off social media just to share with me what the fashions are in it. It was a frat and something they'd posted of all the frat rats with their little sisters, who were all dressed up like the 70s roller disco chicks and with the tube tops, all that. And most salient point about this is there were 6 girls and they had crop tops with all of them with their chests exposed, just at some little college event. And the guys were all dressed in their little...
Yeah. Now, listen, we'll close out this hour. We'll continue on this, though. This is a national epidemic. There is no doubt about it. And we're seeing the fallout. After people across the media spectrum celebrating the life of Hugh Hefner. Hugh Hefner changed the psychosexual landscape of our time. That's what he said about himself. You bet he did. 855-40-LAURA. Ingram Angle tonight. You're not going to want to miss it. Trade and more from Justice Thomas tonight. Bidets are good. And by the way,
most people listening don't know what you're talking about.
A bidet is, it's a European thing where they, because I think it was once Gore Vidal actually. I think it was Gore Vidal who wrote, "How is it that we've progressed in society, throughout the centuries with indoor plumbing and electricity, and yet bathroom habits today are in many ways less sanitary than they were before the time of Christ, where they actually had aqueducts, they actually cleaned themselves. I'm sorry, but boys, from the toilet seat to the number 2, they will, and I don't care how old they are, a 55-year-old man will not be as clean as what is that? Is that just back to the caveman days? I don't know what is that.
Very Michelle Obama of you. Maybe you should go to the Obama Foundation Summit this week.
My husband stank. What did she say about
Yeah, stinky. She called him stinky at one time.
She said his stinky socks all over the room.
We'd throw him out the bed.
What is she saying the other day about him? That
I don't know.
He needs more friends. What? He talks to her too much? Anyway, back to the Clintons.
Please, God.
So Hillary entered this secret agreement with the Hillary Victory Fund and Hillary for America at the time, the cash-strapped DNC. So in exchange for raising funds, Hillary would control the party's finances and all the money raised. So what happened, and this is in the Donna Brazile book, is that her campaign got the right of refusal over things like who would be the party's comms director, communications director, and who would ultimately have final say over key staff members who do help determine the approach to the voters at large. So Hillary wanted to control the whole operation at the DNC and used money and campaign contributions, donations, bundling, all that to do it.
Right.
So Brazil also said that the DNC was required to consult with the campaign about everything from budgeting to data, analytics, mailings. And apparently Donna Brazile, again, is a longtime Democratic operative, told Bernie Sanders that Hillary had done this, had exerted this control over the party, but that he wasn't willing to really take this up to, he wasn't really willing to take this to the national media in a huge way. Remember when he was asked about it during the campaign, he wasn't thrilled about it, but he kind of soft-pedaled his upset. Because I think he probably knew in his heart of hearts he wasn't going to be the nominee. And he thought at the time that Hillary was going to be president.
I have to say, Donna writes in a pretty cutting way about somebody that she was so close to, mainly Hillary Clinton.
Why do you think she's doing this?
I think because Hillary lost. I mean, that's my guess. Had Hillary won, Donna would be transportation secretary or something.
Had Brazile known about this, she writes in her book, she never would have accepted the interim chair position. Well, also, Donna Brazile was getting questions from CNN, wasn't she?
Which she was passing along to the Clinton campaign.
Yeah, so she kind of played both sides, too.
So, I mean, this is where she writes this in the book, quote, I had promised Bernie when I took the helm at the Democratic National Committee after the convention that I would get to the bottom as to whether Hillary Clinton's team had rigged the nomination process. After discovering the document, where they indeed did, she said, quote, I had found my proof, and it broke my heart. She calls and tells Bernie about it, but then she says, basically, I can't do anything about it. Well, you could have resigned. You could have made a public stink. Could have gone to the media. See, this is where the story kind of begins to fall apart, and you wonder, why now? I guess it's another question book, like what happened? Why now? Donna Brazile's book, I think, is appropriately called Hacks.
No, what happened? What happened? Part 2. Hillary kicked Bernie to the curb, and Clintons use people. They're users. They're big users. Always have been. Always will be. They use people and then they discard them. Bill Clinton used women, then he discarded them. He used women, then he maligned them. Tried to buy them off. When they're not bought off, then they destroy them. It's the politics of personal destruction. And in the process, if Bernie Sanders had really become a problem, can you imagine what they would have done to him? Think about it. Imagine what the Clintons would have really done to Bernie. Let's say he were 20 years younger. Let's say he was really willing to take on the Clintons past. Imagine what they would have done to Sanders. I mean, he was kind of playing nice with them. But I think you could make the argument that they would have just run over him like with a Mack truck had he become a real issue for them. We're getting a lot of social media traffic on the topic that we hit last hour. I promised you, if you wanted to continue to talk about it on this Friday, we would. And that is the cultural carnage that we find now in the wake of the last 50-plus years of the normalization of pornography. Increasingly dark and demonic images, sexual images, violent sexual imagery, violence period in our culture toward women, toward young children, and how that has become, with the help of the internet, a toxic mix for personal relationships, marriages, intimacy, the innocence of children, all affected across the board. You see it with the news coming out from Harvey Weinstein all the way to the financial management of the Soros portfolio kingpin, who is now accused of having a penthouse dungeon. That kind of, the way it's described, it sounds like what I hear about 50 Shades of Grey. No, I didn't read it. No, I never would. But women have done this in part to themselves, have they not? By themselves becoming willingly being objectified. We, as parents, from what we allow our children to watch, what we allow our girls to wear, how we allow our children to speak, how early we give them screens, which are portals to pornography. Screens are portals to pornography. I don't care how many blocks you have on. I don't care how much you have browser history alerts. If a kid has a screen, you are likely to have that child at a very early age see a pornographic image. The average age that a young child sees his first or her first pornographic image is 11 years old today. 11. Now, you don't think that has an effect on our kids? You don't think that has an effect on society? I think pornography has become, without a doubt, a public health threat to the United States of America. That's why Virginia lawmakers, earlier, maybe late last year, proposed legislation to put greater restrictions on watching porn. And psychologists are studying this. Some of them are themselves pretty left-wing. But nevertheless, even people like Paul Wright, who's an associate psychology and media use professor at Indiana University, told Fox in an email earlier this year, is when asked the question, whether porn consumption is causally related to the various harms identified, various social pathologies that we discuss. To answer this question, one would have to identify a philosophy of cause that all agree to, and he's talking about the scientific process and so forth. But he said, scientists rarely agree on anything. However, when you see the early age that porn is hitting the screens, the minds of young people, it would be hard to conclude that this doesn't have some type of effect. So what do we know? We're still learning more about how the more hardcore and violent pornographic images are affecting our children. But the same professor who conducted research on porn's potential influence of youth behavior, he speculated that some of these scientists, despite their maybe political bias, would actually agree with some of what the Virginia legislature is saying about the ill effects of pornography. You need more research in this to prevent these harmful effects? Yes, the majority of scientists would agree that you need more research at the very least into this. Well, I don't understand how it's difficult to do this research. I mean, you'd have to be over some long period of time. But anecdotally, we hear story after story about just how bad this is for individuals who find themselves steeped in it. Is it an addiction? We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA. We'll get to your calls. A lot of you are calling in on this topic, which on a Friday, it's free for all. We'll cover every topic, politics, the culture, everything in between. Remember, the Ingraham Angle tonight on the Fox News Channel. And check out my Twitter feed and Facebook. Look at what President Trump is taking on his Asia trip for some pleasure reading. Billionaire at the barricades in his hot little hands.
I know you purchased a timeshare and there was a time where you loved it. Then you didn't. You've learned the contracts are perpetual. The fees constantly go up and you can't get the dates or destinations you want. You've tried getting out of that crooked contract with no luck. Well, I've done my research and I want you to call my friends at Resort Release. ResortRelease.com helps timeshare owners legally terminate their contracts and end all future payments, guaranteed. They've even earned an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. Go to ResortRelease.com or call them at 855-66-LAURA. Resort Release gives every customer a 100% guarantee that lets you legally and permanently walk away. If you don't get out of the contract, you don't pay a dime, period. 2018's maintenance fees are due any day now, so get out now before you have to pay again. Visit ResortRelease.com or call them at 855-66-LAURA to see if you qualify. That's 855-66-LAURA. I want you to call my friends at Resort Release. That's 855-66-LAURA. If you've listened to my show for any period of time, you know how much I love Food for the Poor. They do what they say. Their financial integrity is unequaled, and I've seen their work personally. I'm so excited to work with them again this year. In Haiti, 1 out of 14 children will never see the age of 5 without our help. Together, we're going to save the lives of 4,200 children. $50 provides food for a year and clean water for life for a suffering child. Call 844-868-4673 or go to lauraingraham.com. That's 844-868-4673 or go to lauraingraham.com.
And these are the psychologist, James, who is that?
Dr. Gail Dinan.
Okay, well, it's a great point. Sounds like a good guess for the Ingraham Angle. Of course that's happening. These young boys are seeing these images like, well, this is what I want. This is what I should have. This is what women should be.
Well, this is what sex is.
This is what.
Again, they have no experience, so they see these images and they raise the bar to something totally out of touch with reality, and diminishes and objectifies both parties.
Let's go to Josh in North Carolina. Josh. Let's go to Chad in Iowa. Chad.
Yes, I just want to make a comment on this because, not only is it a fantasy world, but what happens is it really poisons the mind of men to where it causes them to just lure upon young women today in the everyday workforce. People who, women that they probably don't know they're doing this, but their short skirts, their boots. It's just, man, just plays with their mind, and then they begin to act out on these things. And then because of this, young girls and women are raped today, which is really sad.
No, it's a heartbreaker. It really is. Mike in Arkansas. Mike, welcome.
Yeah, Laura. There's an old saying that boys experience the world through their eyes, and girls experience the world through their ears. And as a result, we need to protect boys' eyes and we need to protect girls' ears. The virtue of modesty used to be taught by our church, but we have gotten rid of that, and you can see how girls are dressing, and all they're doing is entrapping men by the way they dress. Not excusing boys, but our modesty has gone completely out the window in my church and yours.
No, the word modesty doesn't. That's like throwback. Chastity, modesty. It's a throw. People think, oh, that's quaint. It's a quaint way of looking at the world. And I'm not saying that women asking for it. I don't like that phraseology. But we do send a message to the world, all those around us, by the way we comport ourselves, and we all can work on that, and behaviors and patience, like I have, but in the way you dress, especially when you're young, you are sending a message about what you think about yourself, what you value most about yourself. And I think we can do better there, no doubt about it. Brian Kilmeade will join us. New bestseller, Andrew Jackson, The Miracle of New Orleans. Don't go away.
With the holidays so close around the corner, you're probably starting to make those long gift lists. Look, you can stop now because it's time for Ovation Cell Therapy's holiday gift set, priced to save you, get this, almost 60%. This year's gift set has everything you need for vibrant, healthy hair, and you can even customize the set by choosing the products best for your hair type or the person you're gifting it to. Ovation Cell Therapy is the gift for everyone on your list. The powerful, one-of-a-kind cell therapy treatment is proven to give you thicker, stronger, healthier hair. I know because I use it, I love it, and frankly, my hair looks pretty fabulous. Give this gift set for everyone on your list this season at ovationhair.com and select Laura Ingraham in the survey at checkout for a special new customer discount on top of the near 60% savings. See details at ovationhair.com. Remember to select Laura Ingraham at checkout for your special new customer discount. Hurry, this ends soon. Ovationhair.com. Laura Ingraham at checkout.
From running errands, going out with my family, just getting to the studio every day, just like you do. I depend on my car, and I have a question for you. If your car breaks down today, it's out of manufacturer's warranty. Can you afford the repairs? Thousands for a new transmission? Oh my gosh, your engine blows. You don't think that can happen? It happened to me. This is like 11 years ago. What a nightmare. Ends up costing me $7,000 to replace the engine. You just, guys, I'm telling you, your car is out of manufacturer warranty, between 3 and 12 years old. CarShield.com. Go there, become a member. You get extended vehicle service protection. CarShield covers practically everything: computers, mechanical repairs, GPS, electronics. And you get your favorite mechanic or the dealer to do the job, and you don't get caught out of pocket. They get paid directly. And you get 24/7 roadside and rental while yours is in the shop. So get covered by CarShield like I did. Call 800-CAR-6100. That's 800-CAR-6100. To go to carshield.com. Always use that code Laura. You get an extra 10% off. Carshield.com, code Laura. Deductible may apply.
You live but once, and when you're dead, you're done. So let the good times go.
Are you having fun in this job?
I am.
Is it?
I love it. Well, there's been a lot of false reporting that I'm angry about things.
I've never seen you angry. I've known you for 14 years.
No, I think the press is fake. A lot of the media is fake. But so you could say there's a certain anger there, but it's not really anger. It's really amazement how dishonest, when you get right down how dishonest the news is.
My exclusive interview with President Trump for the Ingraham angle, you can watch it in its entirety, and we link it on lauraingraham.com and our Facebook page. Fox posted the entire interview. It was interesting. A lot of people say he's angry, he's fuming in the Oval Office. I have known him for a long time, and he's passionate. There's no doubt about it. Donald Trump wants things done. He gets very impatient, and he wants change. And he doesn't understand why Washington moves so slowly. I like that. I like the fact that he wants to cut through the clutter, cut through the red tape and get stuff done. I think that's another reason why he was elected. People just want someone who's a doer. And he likes doing interviews every now and then, but he wants to get stuff done. It's frustrating. Yeah, the trade deficit did go up in September. It went down a little bit, I believe, in August, but it went back up in September. You got to get this NAFTA renegotiation done. Tonight, Bob Lighthizer will talk about that. He almost never does interviews. Lighthizer is the president's trade man. He's doing all the renegotiation of NAFTA. He's a U.S. trade representative. So he's in the cabinet. So we'll talk to him tonight. But this China deal is a real tricky one, because now we need China's help on North Korea, because that problem was passed off to Trump by all the former presidents who couldn't solve North Korea. So now Trump has to balance U.S. trade interests and China cheating on trade with the fact that we need China's help on North Korea. It's a tough position to be in. He talked about that last night. And he said maybe I will meet Putin on this trip. And he said he would challenge him on Ukraine and ask him, what's the strategy here in Syria, and maybe they'll have a conversation. So this is going to be a big trip with big implications. Joining us now is my friend and a massive New York Times bestseller, again on his hands, Andrew Jackson and the Miracle of New Orleans, the battle that shaped America's destiny. Brian Kilmeade, of course, you see him every morning on Fox and Friends. His last book, Thomas Jefferson and the Tripoli Pirates, was another #1 New York Times bestseller, and we're just so happy that he's with us, and he's just one of my favorite people, period. Brian, how are you?
I'm glad you're aboard. I mean, what a prime time, and what a week. I mean, I've been loving your show. It seems like you're loving it. I just feel bad for week 2. The president, Clarence Thomas, Lighthizer. I mean, what the heck's going on? How the hell do you have a week 2? They say leave on top. Just retire Friday.
Brian, that did cross my mind. Because we started with General Kelly on Monday. I'm like, okay, now what? I feel like I've been doing this for 2 years already.
Oh, it's fantastic.
No,
and General Kelly talks about, and I'm talking about this, and I do the history books, and I'm saying to myself, I got to link it to the news. Who thought we'd be in a war on history? And he stepped into it on Monday. I 100% agree with his assessment. But can you believe that's the news that came out of your interview?
I don't know, Brian. And we talked about this earlier in the show about how books like yours, obviously O'Reilly's books that are accessible history that take a period of time critical in the American understanding and our historical development, and you tell the story in an accessible way that makes it come to life, like almost like a blockbuster movie today. It comes to life. People, I think, are hungry for this because of the attack on history that we're seeing in schools and Hollywood and the politically correct. So it really couldn't come at a better time. So I think there's like a boomerang effect. So people are gobbling up books like yours because they're not getting this from the culture today, and kids are not, sadly, getting much of it even in primary school and in high school, and certainly not in college.
Yeah, I mean, but I am getting, I'll tell you what, more private school. I have so many people who come up to me, and you did a book tour too, who say, I put my kid into a private school and I could barely afford it because I want them getting traditional English and traditional history. And what it is not whitewashing. I don't tell you that Andrew Jackson's perfect. No one even says Lincoln is perfect. I mean, the guy failed at a bunch of elections. I mean, he didn't come out of the Civil War with the philosophy everyone says he did. He would have bailed out of it early if he would just agree everybody no new slave states. That's a fact. But Andrew Jackson won a battle that maybe nobody else in America could have won. At 13, he was an orphan. You know what it's like. People have built-in excuses in life. My parents were alcoholics. My parents got divorced. I didn't have parents. He's a guy who lost his 2 brothers in the Revolutionary War. His mom, he found out his mom died when her trunk of clothes arrived at his house. And then no figured, okay, my mom's dead. So at 13, you can be a vagrant or a criminal, or you could decide this world will know my name. And that's what he did. As a lawyer, a congressman, a senator, a major general, and a two-term president. I think that's worthy of study. That's why you get statues, not because you're perfect, but because you're impactful.
Well, and tell us about this particular battle. Raymond Arroyo is with us, who hails from New Orleans, and I've walked the streets next to the Ursuline Convent, which is such a beautiful building, and you read the plaque there about what the nuns prayed for at the time to Our Lady of
Prompt Succor.
Prompt Succor, which is, help. We need fast help. And tell us about that aspect of the book and how important that moment was in this overall story.
A couple of things, and I think, Ray, you can appreciate this, in that they're doing an hour special on Fox News. It's almost done. And it starts with the Battle of New Orleans and rounds out his life. And we also debate the statue because people want to take a statue down. But we now at Fox, and you know that, you might not know this, Laura, but we now have drone pilots with cameras. Our cameraman went and got drone certified. So we fly over the battlefield, and you could see overhead the exact battlefield. There's less woods and less swamp, but exactly where the British invaded. And we stand on the berms that Jackson built, and we see the gully, which is the Rodriguez Canal that was redug. Right. And within 3 weeks after the British disembarked with the Wellington's Invincibles that just defeated Napoleon, they had their eye on Bourbon Street and they thought they'd waltz right in. Jackson didn't let him have one peaceful night, attacked him with hatchets and guns as soon as night fell, backed up, built a mini wall called a berm, redug the Rodriguez Canal, filled it with water, and said, bring it on. And they did. And by January 8th, they were almost entirely wiped out. So Jackson did what Napoleon couldn't, destroyed the British. We'd become allies, and we would never be invaded again. That's why I thought this was the perfect battle.
Well, and I think, again, people feel sometimes overwhelmed by history. They're intimidated by some of the books that are big bestsellers, like Ron Chernow's books, which are fabulous.
Oh my God!
But he's an incredible historian. But you see, you understand that, like, people, a lot of Americans, I think, say, "Oh, I want to lose myself in a novel." But America's history does read like a novel, with characters with flaws and great strengths and personal struggles and stories of broken homes and infidelity But it's all there, but it just happens to be the American founding and the American experience. And when we understand the sacrifices of these men and the genius at the times where we needed it, and women, it makes us appreciate this country a lot more. It makes me appreciate it.
So to get back to your absolutely. And by the way, Ron Chernow, I did an interview with him too, a radio interview, and I'm through 200 pages of this book, but it's 1,000 pages.
Oh, no, I can't.
I know people buy it, but how do you get through it?
I can't get through it. I don't have time. I'm sorry. I'm being honest. I can't read a 1,000-page book anymore. I just don't have the time. I'd love to, but I don't.
I know, Ursula. You should have someone read it to you. You're such a big star. You should have people walk around reading you books, Laura. You should not have to read yourself. That's the prime time. Hannity does.
By the way, Brian, I have to ask you about this. So you hosted the 10 o'clock show for some time, for 2 weeks at least, 3 weeks?
2.5 weeks, yeah.
How did you feel after the first week when you were doing your morning radio show, Fox and Friends? You were doing Fox and Friends, your morning radio show, and the 10 o'clock show. How the heck did you feel?
I cut it as 2 days. I actually would change outfits. What I would do is I do the show, do a couple of things for the book, and then I would go work out, take a shower, watch television a little bit, then go back as a different person. And I would go back in, and you have a great staff, an incredible staff. And then we were in the transition, and I loved it. See, Laura, you know this. I mean, if I wasn't doing this, I'd be the most annoying accountant in the world or hotel operator because I love this. So, I mean, I don't have any hobbies. I don't really have a lot of friends. So I would choose to be studying this, reading this, watching this. So to be able to do it, I don't know when it's going to end. And we see so many careers end overnight.
Right.
And I don't want to have any regrets. When they said to me, Brian, we're waiting to the 30th for Laura. Do you want to do a couple of weeks? I said, of course. So it's great. I mean, I got to see your staff take shape, and so much happened, breaking news during that hour. I mean, there was a time when you can tape your show, but not only can Laura Ingraham tape her show, but either can Shannon Bream. Because thanks to President Trump and the world keeps spinning, everything keeps breaking. So it's an exciting place to be.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, so much news is breaking in the morning, early in the morning. So much news is breaking late at night. And you guys have interviewed the president so many times on Fox and Friends. He mentioned Fox yesterday. He said, look, oftentimes I'm not treated all that fairly by the press. Fox has been pretty fair, not great, but fair. Have you found him to be angry when you've known him for many years? I mean, does he come across as angry to you? That's how the media keeps describing him this week. He's perpetually angry.
No, he's intense. But number one, I've never seen that side of him. And one thing that people always ask me, what's he like? So I'm in Columbus, Ohio today. I'm going to speak at Ashford University. And when I open up the questions, the first one will be, what is Trump like? I go, here's the thing. If you judge people on how they treat people they need nothing from, he grades a perfect 10. He's nice to the makeup people. He cares about the guy who drives him. He cares that he asks interns what they really want to do. And I've seen it with no cameras. He knew the name of his audio operator when he was doing The Apprentice. They all knew him. They all thought he was cool. They all thought he was one of the guys. That's why he's a great grandparent, too, because he is a very unique guy, but he is not somebody that's that. Tell me, like, he does not like. He said George Bush knew there was no weapons of mass destruction. I told him he was wrong. When he said Megyn Kelly's ratings are bad, I told him he was wrong.
No, they
when
weren't
I thought
wrong.
he
They
took
weren't
on
bad.
the NFL, right. And when I thought he made the things worse with the NFL, we disagree on this, but I thought it was wrong. But I do it respectfully. I say I know what you're getting at, but I just think for somebody who's been looking at this for a year and a half, now it's going to be bad, and it was bad for a few more weeks, and now the NFL is suffering. So he does not mind when you disagree if you don't say he's deranged, he's unbalanced, he's a bad person, he needs to be institutionalized.
I challenged him yesterday about these leaving these State Department positions open, and how can we let China get away with everything they're doing to us? And he went back and forth on it, but he doesn't mind being challenged. But I think he doesn't like it when his integrity is constantly being trashed, and I think that's the bad thing. Brian, I'm so happy for you, all your success, both in, of course, television, but in these books. And Andrew Jackson is, he's one of the portraits in the Oval Office, one of President Trump's favorites, and it's a perfect choice. The Battle of New Orleans, the miracle of New Orleans, the battle that shaped America's destiny. You have a great time there out on the book trail, and I'll see you soon, and just congratulations. We love the book.
And to you, I'm so glad you're anchoring in the prime time. I feel like we're totally rebuilt now, Laura. We're ready to kill people again.
And I will do my very best. I'll be calling you for lots of advice. Brian, kill me. You're on the Laura Ingraham Show. Thank you so much. And this book is featured on lauraingraham.com and our Facebook page. Featured selection for this week. We'll take a break.
I depend on my car to run errands, to get to work, just like you do. So let me ask you this. If your car broke down today, could you afford the repairs? I don't worry about that anymore because I have extended vehicle service protection from CarShield. Replacing your engine can cost thousands. Even a simple repair to the sensor, not so simple, it can cost over $1,000 as well. CarShield's affordable extended vehicle service protection can save you thousands for a covered repair. And they cover practically everything. You can have your favorite mechanic or dealership do the work with CarShield, and then you get the mechanic paid directly. You don't have to worry about getting reimbursed. So get covered by CarShield today, and you'll get the VIP treatment from CarShield's administrators, 24/7 roadside assistance, and a rental while yours is in the shop. So call 800-CAR-6100 and mention the code Laura. Or just visit carshield.com and use the code Laura to save 10%. That's carshield.com, code Laura.
A deductible may apply.